During the negotiation phase, once you've got the customer to the point where they're ready to send a deposit, do you have either in the tech packs or maybe a separate form where they specify their expectations for QC? Or do you find that most of your customers just don't have a clue about QC and they don't have any expectations other than they expect the best?
Hi, welcome to the Voice of Vietnam Manufacturing Interview Series. My name is Chris. I'm a sourcing expert that's been living in Vietnam for the last 10 years. Today, allow me to introduce you to...
Give me some specific examples of how you control quality.
Well, we have a few lines of check. So we have when the cutter cuts, we make sure that all the prints are okay, or it matches the pattern. So that's our first check. Then it goes into our line. So our line manager will check to see if all the measurements are correct as they're putting it in, and then it goes up the line. Then we have all of that, every point there's a check. There's a check in midway as well to make sure all the measurements are all okay. Then you have a final check as well. On the end line, there's some of the checks out. And then we do a final check after it's all packed as well. So before it actually leaves to the customer, we pull out a percentage of that and then we check that in the bag and make sure that
it's all labelled correctly.
Yeah, all labelled correctly and everything is all okay.
During the negotiation phase, once you've got the customer to the point where they're ready to send the deposit, do you have either in the tech packs or maybe a separate form where they specify their expectations for QC? Or do you find that most of your customers just don't have a clue about QC and they don't have any expectations other than they expect the best?
It's a mix. Some are like that, and some actually give us specific the AQL standards they want it checked against. So it depends on their experience, and we need to send to a third-party facility to be checked as well. So it just depends who the customer is, how big they are, and their experience. But regardless, we have our own standard in-house, and we'll always do that no matter who the customer is.
Do you have questions about producing in Vietnam? Join one of my live webinars every Wednesday, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, that include a 20-minute question and answer session. Links are in the description below.
Okay, let's talk about quality control with respect to recycled polyester or recycled nylon. How can a customer verify that?
We always ensure there's accreditation for it. So GRS is the global recycling standard. So we need to have that accreditation from the mill. They need to provide that. It's also, if it's Reprieve, there's also another certification with that, and that also needs to be approved by Reprieve. So we need to send documentation off to them to use their labelling on the packaging.
So we can't check it in here if that's what you're asking in terms of...
It's a tough one.
I mean, you looking at the fabric, you wouldn't know. Just looking at it, you have to trust the mill, and that's why we only have probably 2 or 3 partners.
Have these standards and have these accreditations, and we're sure.
Right, well, because I mean, the mills are just buying the yarn, the knitting mill. So the factories that are knitting, whether they're warp knitting or circular knitting, they're buying the yarn from a spinner, and then the spinners are buying the recycled pellets.
Material,
the PE, whatever, the raw material, and there's like 3 steps in the supply chain, and by the time you're working with the warp knitter or the circular knitter, they are trusting like 2 other suppliers.
I think they would have to make sure before it gets into their facility that it is all certified from all the other ends already, for them to get the accreditation for the actual fabric that they're supplying. So they would have to do the testing on there. And we're trusting them.
Yeah, it is a big trusting. And so that just brings up the point of know the factory owners. But I came up with this idea, and I put it in my book, is the best thing you can do to verify if a factory has good quality control or not is to spend time with the owner. Go out to lunch, hang out in their office, maybe even go on a weekend trip with the owner and their kids. And I've known factory owners that do that, they have a very close relationship. They say, once a thief, always a thief. Once a good person, always a good person, and also birds of a feather flock together. So if the owner of the factory is honest, humble, meticulous, passionate, then they're going to hire those type of people.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're only going to work with those types of suppliers.
100%.
So to me, of course, there's AQL standards, there's 4-point fabric inspection standards, there's military spec standards, and there's SGS, Intratec testing you can do. But when like in the scenario we're talking about where it's this business is depending on that business, is trusting that business, it's at the end of the day, it's those owners. The owners of each one of those factories in that supply chain and the people that they hire
Exactly.
to do all the details. You know, I just had a consultation with a client where he wants to start a fashion brand, and he wants to go and meet all the suppliers and do videos and get to know them, which is great in theory, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to go to like 3 different countries to be able to meet everybody in the supply chain. And so, you know, I even saw an app just yesterday. I saw it on LinkedIn or somewhere. It's an app where you scan the QR code on the garment and it shows you all the places where and I mean, my first thought was, will consumers care and take the time?
Especially if you're placing your order overseas to a Vietnam factory and you're in America or Australia, it is about trust.
Yeah.
And then it's also about if you get that sample, you're like, okay, this is good, then
Like you're trusting it's going to be made like that, it's going to be shipped like that. So, you know, there's a lot of risk there. But like you say, I think that's something that we've probably done probably subconsciously is partnering with suppliers that have the same level of quality as us. You know, we've only got a handful that we really work with because we trust they're on time, their quality products. We've never had any issues with the fabric.
You know, sometimes we've gone straight
Printing.
to bulk with the colours and know that they
will dye it. We'll know, got full confidence with them. And I think, it does kind of flow on, and then it is there. And I think I hope that our work shows that too, and it does come out.
Do you advise people to hire a third-party QC company to do a third-party inspection before making the final payment and shipment?
We very confident in our check. We do tell if they're more than welcome to. If they want to come themselves on it, we do offer it. Yeah, we're more than happy for that to happen. We've got no issues people coming in and looking at the product.
Yeah, it's a good option, but it's costly. It really it's $300 per man day is the highest. I've seen it as low as $100 per man day. When you do the math, it can come out to be $1 a garment for quality control to hire a third-party QC if you do a 100% inspection.
Because we have a report that we send with our garments too. So it's entirely up to the customer what they want to do. But we know that we're sending something because Gemma and I sometimes are there packing the garments too, just to make sure that we are sending what we're supposed to be sending out.
And we wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
Exactly.
No, honestly,
Exactly.
we're really we're very passionate about our quality and ensuring that we'll pick up tiny things and I'm happy.
And our staff are very passionate about quality.
And that's the thing; they then pick up on it.
You know, they're like, I can't. So there's an imprint, a dot on the print. Can I get a new one? You know, they're the ones that pick it up too.
Because it starts from the top. They see what we pick up and what we reject. So now they'll pick it up before it gets to the culture of that really building, which we love. Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks for listening. Is your business struggling due to delays out of China or quality control issues in India? When is a good time to get on-the-ground advice or factory introduction from an expert in Vietnam? Schedule a one-on-one chat with me or let's meet for coffee in Ho Chi Minh City. And remember, thoughts are things, and where there's a will, there's a way.